July 3, 2020, a group of protesters block the road leading to Mount Rushmore. They demand the permanent closure of the famed memorial and the return of the Black Hills to the Oceti-Sakowin, the Great Sioux Nation. Instead, 21 protesters are arrested, with some facing up to 16 and a half years in prison. It's the latest in a centuries-old conflict surrounding Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills. This is a case of theft. How was Mount Rushmore stolen? To know that, you have to know the history of the Black Hills. Covering 5,000 square miles and at an elevation of 7,242 feet, the Black Hills are among the oldest mountain ranges in the world, predating much of the Alps and the Himalayas. It's estimated that humans have lived among the tall pine trees and granite mountains since 11,500 BC. For almost 300 years, it was home to the Arikara, Cheyenne, Crow, Kiowa, and Arapaho. Led by Standing Bull, the Sioux arrived from Minnesota in 1775, just as the first shots of the American Revolutionary War were fired. European expansion and tensions with the Chippewa, another tribe inhabiting the area of the Sioux tribe, necessitated their journey, following the buffalo into the Great Plains. They mastered the wild horses and fought the other nations to claim the land as their own. The most favored and sacred of the land was the Black Hills, the Pahasepa. Lakota tradition claims the first of their people lived happily in the hills thousands of years before Standing Bull's arrival. The nature of their appearance also squares with Lakota views on the cycle of life. A circle, a constant loop representing birth, death, and birth. For the Sioux, it's the center of the universe. The early 20th century Sioux holy man and scribe Black Elk described a vision that brought him to the top of Harney Peak, summing up the Lakota's view of the hills. I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. And I saw the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, and in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father, and I saw that it was holy. The Sioux enjoyed their land, unbothered by the colonists except for the occasional French trader, until President Thomas Jefferson completed the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. 828,000 square miles were purchased from France, including the whole of what would later be called South Dakota, the land of the Sioux and the home of the Black Hills. Because of the U.S. expansion to the west, the area inhabited by the Sioux got progressively smaller. This continued even after 1868, when the tribe was allocated land by the government under the name of the Great Sioux Reservation. By 1912, only one-third of the land allotment of the Great Sioux Reservation remained in the hands of the tribe. Their religious customs were soon banned. The Sioux children that went to school had their braids chopped off and were punished for speaking their native tongue. Their land and their culture was being stamped out. But the new century brought a new generation of Sioux, one educated in how U.S. laws work. When new land grabs were attempted by the government, delegates were sent to Washington to formally complain, present alternatives, and generally delay proceedings through bureaucracy. A new organization, the Society of American Indians, kept the claim on the Black Hills alive. They appealed to Congress to allow the Court of Claims to hear their grievances by stressing the American values of equality and justice. They asked to review the old treaties and other legal documents pertaining to the Black Hills, explaining, obtaining this knowledge, we can best and sooner become independent citizens of this great United States. Their appeal struck a chord with South Dakota's official historian, Doane Robinson, who wrote an article in 1911 defending the Sioux and their claim of the Black Hills, writing, "They have no thought that they can regain possession of the hills, but they think they have an equitable claim against Uncle Sam for the value of the property." An investigative council was formed in Sioux country, and the search for a lawyer to best represent their case and bring it to court began. In December 1921, a quartet of lawyers was selected, and on May 7, 1923, lead attorney Ralph E. Case, an American man born and educated in the Sioux Territory, filed 24 Sioux compensation claims in the Court of Claims, including an official claim on the Black Hills. Case cautioned the Sioux that it would be many years before they would hear a final decision. In fact, it would take another 2 decades. In the meantime, a special project was being developed in the area. Having been designated a national forest in 1907, the Black Hills had become a tourist attraction. In 1924, Doane Robinson, the man who just 13 years earlier defended the Sioux's claim on the Black Hills, dreamed of something even bigger for the area, a monument to be carved from those natural and unique granite formations, the Needles. Robinson imagined, instead of towering formations, towering figures of the West carved out of stone. Lewis and Clark, General Custer, Sacagawea, and even Red Cloud himself. Goodson Borlum, a sculptor known just as much for his work as he was for his rabid patriotism and headline-grabbing feuds with the rest of the art community, was deemed worthy for the job. Borlum was excited by the idea, though he steered Robinson away from the Western heroes. He imagined an immense tribute to American history, partially due to practicality. It's easier to attract financing for a national monument than for a regional one. The initial idea was for two figures, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, one representing the birth of the nation, the other its preservation, standing side by side from tip to toe. But there was another issue. The needles themselves were too difficult a canvas on which to work. At the recommendation of Forest Ranger Theodore Shoemaker, Borlum surveyed an area known to the settlers as Cougar Mountain and to the former Sioux residents as the Six Grandfathers, so named because the formation was said to resemble the six deities central to the people's creation, and the same six deities who Black Elk purported to have spoken to in his vision. Like much of the Black Hills, it was a wholly awe-inspiring place to the people who once lived there. Borlum likewise was awed by the mountain. On August 16, 1925, he planted the American flag on top of the mountain, officially decreeing it the site of his memorial. He also excitedly announced to the world that instead of two, he would be sculpting four presidents: Washington, Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and Theodore Roosevelt. Jefferson was selected because of the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the territory, expanding the country, and Roosevelt, well, Borlum was a friend and longtime supporter, as was South Dakota's former governor and current senator Peter Norbeck. The excuse they gave was that Roosevelt gave the country the Panama Canal, which, as Borlum said, joined the waters of the great East and West Seas. Each of the presidents were significant for the Sioux as well. Washington may represent the birth of the nation, but that very birth drove northeastern tribes into Sioux territory, pushing them across the Missouri River and into the Black Hills. Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase suddenly claimed Sioux territory, including the Black Hills, as America's own. Lincoln personally looked into a military tribunal that had condemned 303 Sioux to death. Torn between making an example and not being a sadist, he compromised. 38 men were hanged, the largest public execution in American history. And Roosevelt was instrumental in limiting education on the reservations, and had once said, "I don't go so far as to think the only good Indians are dead Indians, but I believe 9 out of every 10 are." These were the men whose visages would forever be carved into the sacred mountain. Still, the Sioux made the best of it. Lakota Chief Luther Standing Bear campaigned for Crazy Horse to be added to the monument, while Holy Man Black Elk and his family began pageants on the site that recreated aspects of their culture for the tourist crowd. Or, if not quite recreated, at least satisfied the customers' expectations. Money issues and world events meant a lot of starting and stopping on the project. In 1930, Charles E. Rushmore, a New York-based lawyer whose visit to the Black Hills in 1890 prompted the locals to jokingly call the mountain by his name, contributed $5,000 to fund the memorial's construction. What had been colloquial was now official. Mount Rushmore would remain. Despite such contributions and the public backing from Presidents Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, and Franklin D. Roosevelt, financial straits, Borlum's death, and the inevitable Second World War necessitated the project to be declared over, while still unfinished in 1941. Instead of full bodies, an immense hall of records, and a carved dedication to the USA in the shape of the Louisiana Purchase, the Mount Rushmore Memorial would remain just 4 faces. Just 1 year later, 19 years after the initial filing, the Court of Claims dismissed the Sioux Nation's Black Hills claim. Lawyers on behalf of the tribe would continue to bring the claim back to court and Congress, while activists turned their attention toward the memorial defacing the Six Grandfathers. In 1970, 150 Sioux demonstrators came to Mount Rushmore at the height of its tourist season. While some played traditional music and others distracted rangers, 20 occupied the top of the mountain, airing grievances that told the whole history of the U.S. betrayal and listing the crimes of the 4 presidents whose giant faces sat beneath them. Another group climbed those faces a year later and were arrested. The demands of each this time were simple: honor the Treaty of 1868 and return to the Black Hills. While the government considered it too late to return the territory, the next claims court decision in 1979 overturned the 1942 one. The court awarded $105 million to the Sioux, including interest. The decision was upheld in 1980 by the Supreme Court, who awarded the nation $106 million. In fact, a number of decisions for compensating the Sioux have been passed, and all have been rejected. The Sioux do not ask for money. They demand land that is rightfully theirs to be returned to them. In 1987 and 1990, congressional bills were proposed that would return the Black Hills to the Sioux. Both were killed swiftly. Even a United Nations delegation advised returning some of the land to the Sioux. In a statement from June 2020, Harold Frazier, chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, wrote, "Nothing stands as a greater reminder to the great Sioux Nation of a country that cannot keep a promise or treaty than the faces carved into our sacred land. For many, there is no justice until the land is returned to the Sioux. and the faces of the oppressors that adorn Mount Rushmore are obliterated.